For 5 years, my mornings started the same way. The hiss of the coffee machine, the smell of toast, and the sound of Daniel's voice calling from the hallway, "Honey, have you seen my tie?" I'd be in the kitchen, carefully packing his lunch like clockwork. It wasn't a chore, it was a small act of love, a way to stay connected even when our lives had become swallowed by deadlines and commutes. He'd smile, kiss my cheek, and say, "You're my lucky charm, Mia. Couldn't get through a day without you." I used to believe him. I really did. We met at work. Ironic, considering how it all ended. He was in finance, I was a project coordinator. We started as colleagues, became friends, and somewhere between the late-night emails and coffee breaks, we fell in love. After marriage, I switched departments to avoid conflict of interest, as HR called it, but we still worked for the same firm. I thought that made things easier, familiar, safe, until Vanessa Cole joined the team. Vanessa was his new assistant, fresh out of university, smart, polished, and with a kind of charm that drew people in effortlessly. She laughed at everything Daniel said, even his dry, recycled jokes. I noticed little things at first. The way her messages popped up on his screen after hours, the way he mentioned her name in casual conversation. Vanessa found that report faster than anyone else could, or Vanessa stayed late again to help with the budget forecast. I brushed it off at first. I trusted him. I told myself she was just dedicated. But trust is funny. It doesn't break all at once. It cracks quietly, almost politely. One Friday night, Daniel texted me, "Running late, budget crisis, don't wait up." I didn't. But when I scrolled through social media later that evening, I saw a story on a coworker's feed, a photo of a restaurant, candlelit table, glasses of wine, and in the background, blurry but unmistakable, was Daniel, sitting across from Vanessa. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, I saved the photo and said nothing. The next morning, when he came home, he smelled faintly of perfume, not mine. For the next week, I played my part perfectly. I smiled, packed his lunch, asked about his meetings. I wanted to see if he'd come clean. He didn't. He even started complimenting my lunches again, saying, "Vanessa said you should open a catering business." That one line burned into me like acid. Vanessa said. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every detail. The late nights, the mysterious calls, the sudden gym membership, the way he had started using cologne again after years of indifference. I realized it wasn't just a fling, it was a performance, and I'd been an unwilling extra in it. I knew I had to be smart. Daniel was the kind of man who hated being caught off guard. He thrived on control, on always being the one with the upper hand. If I confronted him directly, he'd gaslight me, spin the story, make me doubt myself. No, I needed a different ending, one that would leave no room for his manipulation. The next morning, I went through our shared laptop. Daniel wasn't careful. He never thought I'd look. In his email drafts, I found unsent messages between him and Vanessa. They weren't love letters, not exactly, but they were worse. "You make work tolerable," he'd written. "Don't know how I survived before you came along." I printed them, every word. Then I started planning. I didn't want revenge that looked obvious. I wanted it to feel poetic, like a quiet curtain closing on a play he didn't realize was ending. That week, I packed his lunch every day, but this time I made it perfect. Fresh pasta, grilled salmon, little handwritten notes that said things like, "You're amazing, I'm proud of you, love you always." He smiled at each one, completely unaware that the woman writing them was already halfway gone. Then came Friday. I woke up early, brewed his favorite coffee, and prepared the neatest lunch I'd ever made. But instead of food, I placed a neatly folded note inside. It read, "Bon appetit, Daniel. I quit, both the job and you." I added a small photo of the two of them from that restaurant night, printed from my phone. When he came into the kitchen, dressed in his usual crisp shirt and blue tie, he smiled. "You're spoiling me again?" I smiled back. Something like that. He kissed me, grabbed the bag, and left. I waited 10 minutes, then sent an email to HR, a resignation letter. I didn't explain. I just wrote, "Thank you for the opportunities. It's time I chose peace over routine." Then I packed a suitcase, just one. At noon, my phone started buzzing, call after call. I didn't answer, but when the messages started coming in, I couldn't help but look. The first one, "Mia, what is this?" The second, "Did you really quit? What's going on?" Then one from Vanessa herself, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." That one made me laugh, out loud, sharp and bitter. A misunderstanding. As if love and betrayal could ever be mistaken for anything else. By the time Daniel got home that evening, the apartment was empty except for my note on the kitchen counter. It said, "You always said you couldn't get through a day without me. Now you'll have to learn how." I moved into a small studio apartment downtown, close enough to walk to the art school I'd once dreamed of attending. I signed up for a course in design, something I'd put off for years because Daniel said it was impractical. I got a part-time job at a gallery cafe. My life was quieter, smaller maybe, but for the first time in a long while, it was mine. Weeks later, I bumped into an old colleague at a grocery store. She looked uncomfortable, the way people do when they have gossip they don't know how to deliver. "You heard about Daniel and Vanessa?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "They're both under investigation," she whispered. "Apparently, they were caught using company funds for their dinners. HR's digging through everything." I smiled, just a little. "I'm sure they'll figure it out." She looked at me like she wanted to ask if I'd been the one to report them. I hadn't. I didn't need to. Karma had faster hands than I ever could. Months passed. I stopped checking his social media, stopped replaying the moments that led to our unraveling. Sometimes, though, I'd catch myself remembering the early days when everything was simple and kind. I'd wonder if he ever thought about me, about how easily he'd traded something steady for something shallow. But even if he did, it didn't matter. One rainy evening, I was closing up the cafe when someone walked in, a woman, drenched from the downpour. It took me a second to recognize her. Vanessa. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered. Her hair limp, her clothes wrinkled, eyes hollow. "Mia," she said softly. I wanted to apologize." I stared at her, unsure whether to laugh or pity her. Apologize? For what? Taking what was never yours to begin with? She shook her head. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that. He said you were distant, that you didn't care anymore." I sighed. "And you believed him. Because that's what people like him do. They tell half-truths until someone else fills in the gaps." Her eyes welled up. "He left me too, you know. After everything, said I was a mistake." I looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Then maybe that's the only honest thing he's ever said." She flinched. I didn't mean it cruelly, it was just the truth. After she left, I locked up the cafe and stood by the window, watching the rain hit the glass. I thought about how much energy I'd wasted trying to be perfect for someone who thrived on making me feel small. There was a strange peace in knowing it was over. Not just the marriage, but the illusion that love meant sacrifice without return. 6 months later, my art was featured in a small local exhibition. I titled the collection Quiet Rebellion. One of the pieces was a photo, a neatly packed lunch bag, sitting alone on a kitchen counter with a folded note inside. Viewers loved it. They said it felt powerful yet calm. I smiled, because they didn't know that inside that paper bag was the moment I took my life back. Sometimes, at night, I imagine Daniel seeing my name in a magazine or online, realizing I didn't just survive without him, I thrived. That thought isn't bitter anymore. It's just satisfying. Because in the end, I didn't need revenge that ruined him. I needed revenge that freed me. And it all began with a lunch bag, a note, and the courage to say goodbye to the version of myself who kept giving to someone who never truly saw her. Now, every morning, I pack my own lunch, and every time I seal the bag, I smile. Not because of habit, but because it's a reminder. I no longer serve anyone's story but my own.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.